For weeks, people had watched strange lights moving across the night, gliding in patterns no human machine could match. First came whispers of meteors, then satellites, then secret weapons. But as the lights grew larger, brighter, and nearer, denial became impossible. The visitors were not from Earth. Now they had come. On the morning the fleet appeared, the clouds parted as if the heavens themselves had been pulled open. Silver and black shapes slid through the sky in formation, enormous yet graceful, covering the horizon from one end to the other. They did not thunder like planes or roar like rockets. They moved in silence, as if sound itself bent away from them. In the city where Ryan lived, people flooded the streets. Children clutched their parents' hands, old men leaned on canes, and workers abandoned half-finished tasks to stare upward. Some cried in awe, others in fear. Radios and screens everywhere repeated the same message: do not resist. Do not attack. Wait for instructions. Ryan stood at the edge of the crowd, his hands deep in the pockets of his worn jacket. He had no family with him, no friends to whisper to. His face gave away nothing, but his eyes did not leave the ships. They reflected the silver forms as if they had seen such things before, though that should have been impossible. The largest vessel descended slowly, blotting out the sun. It cast a cold shadow over the city, and people dropped to their knees without being ordered. A brilliant line of light cut across the sky as the ship opened, and from within came a smaller craft, shaped like a blade, descending toward the ground. Soldiers and armored vehicles had been positioned at every street, but they did not fire. They had been told in strict orders: no violence, no sudden moves. Humanity was broken and weary, still scarred from its own wars. A united army of Earth could not hope to stand against such technology. The blade-shaped craft landed in the square at the heart of the city. The ground trembled but did not crack, as though the ship carried no weight at all. A door opened, and from it came tall figures armored in dark silver, their movements too precise to be natural. Their helmets were smooth, hiding every trace of a face. And then she appeared. The alien queen did not need a crown. Her presence was enough. Her figure was slender yet commanding, draped in flowing black that shimmered like water under moonlight. Her skin was pale as ivory, her hair long and dark, and her eyes gleamed with a light no human eyes had ever held. She walked without hurry, each step measured, as if the very ground bent to her will. The people bowed lower, not out of loyalty but out of instinct. The air around her seemed heavy, as if filled with unseen weight. Soldiers shifted nervously, gripping their weapons though they knew they would not dare use them. The Queen's voice carried across the square without effort, neither shouted nor whispered, but heard by every ear. People of Earth, your world belongs to us now. Resistance will bring nothing but ruin. Obedience will grant survival. One will come forward to speak for your kind. The crowd stirred. No one moved at first. Faces turned from one neighbor to another, as if each hoped someone else would step into that deadly space. To speak to such a figure was to risk death with a single wrong word. Ryan stood silent at the edge. He felt no urge to kneel, though he did not rise taller than the others. His gaze rested on the Queen, calm, steady, unshaken. It was then that fate intervened. A soldier nearby shoved him forward, mistaking him for someone else, perhaps a leader, perhaps a chosen messenger. The soldier barked, "Go. Speak." And before Ryan could resist, the crowd parted. He stumbled once, then straightened, walking slowly toward the Queen. All eyes followed him. Murmurs rippled through the people. Who was this man? Why him? He wore no uniform, no badge, nothing that made him look important. He was just another survivor from the city, someone easily overlooked in any other moment. The alien guards tightened their ranks, but the queen lifted one hand, halting them. Her gaze swept over Ryan as if she were measuring a tool, a creature, an object of little consequence. "Is this the one who dares speak for you?" she asked. The crowd said nothing. Fear froze their voices. Ryan did not bow. He did not tremble. His hands remained at his sides as he answered with quiet words, steady and simple. "I did not choose this. But I am here." The queen's eyes narrowed. Her lips curved faintly, the shadow of a smile without warmth. To her, he was nothing but another fragile human, thin and unarmed, a spark in the wind. She turned her head slightly, as if dismissing him already. To her, he was not worth her time. But he kept looking at her. His gaze did not flinch, did not falter. And though she had not yet realized it, though the truth still slept beneath the surface of this encounter, that gaze would change everything. For in those eyes was something older than the city, older than Earth's wars, older even than the alien queen herself. The crowd did not see it yet. The soldiers did not notice. The queen herself, in that first moment, ignored it. But the story of Earth, the Empire, and the fate of two species had already begun to turn. The square was silent after Ryan's words. The alien queen studied him for a moment longer, then turned away as if he were beneath her notice. Her voice, calm and sharp, spread across the air again. "You will come to my hall," she said. "There, the fate of your world will be spoken." The guards moved instantly. Two of them stepped forward, their silver armor gleaming in the pale light. They motioned for Ryan to walk. The crowd shifted back, afraid to be near him. No one spoke for him, no one tried to stop what was happening. In their hearts they were relieved that someone else had been chosen. Ryan gave one last glance at the people he was leaving behind. Some lowered their eyes in shame, others in fear, but none returned his look. Then he followed the guards toward the waiting craft. The ship that had landed in the square opened wide once more. Its walls glowed faintly, not with fire or metal heat but with some energy humans did not understand. The guards led Ryan inside. The floor was smooth and cold beneath his boots, and the air smelled faintly of iron and smoke. The ship rose without sound. The city fell away beneath them, shrinking into gray lines of stone and glass. Ryan stood still, his eyes on the vast vessel above the Queen's flagship. It hung in the sky like a dark mountain, its surface alive with shifting light. The smaller craft slid into a chamber within the flagship. The door closed behind them, and the world outside was gone. Ryan was led through wide corridors, each glowing with soft white light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The ceilings were high, the passages echoing with every step. Strange symbols moved like ripples across the walls, alive yet unreadable. Other aliens passed them in silence. Their armor was not like the guards, some wore robes, some carried tablets that glowed with shifting words. They looked at Ryan with cold curiosity, as if trying to decide if he was animal or man. At last, they came to a hall so vast it seemed to have no end. Tall pillars lined the way, carved from some shining black stone that reflected no light. At the far side stood a throne, raised upon steps, and on it sat the queen. She had changed her robe since the city square. Now it shimmered silver, moving like liquid as she shifted. Her crownless head was high, her eyes fixed on the entrance. Around her throne stood her generals, tall and silent, each armored in different designs. Their faces were hidden, but Ryan felt their gazes like cold knives on his skin. The guards pushed him forward and stepped aside. He stood alone in the center of the hall. The queen leaned forward, resting her chin lightly on one hand. "So," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "The human they send me." Ryan spoke calmly. "I did not choose to be sent. Your soldiers forced me." A ripple of laughter spread among the generals. To them, his words were foolish, even insulting. But the queen did not laugh. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing in thought. "You are bold," she said at last. "Do you know where you stand? This is the heart of my fleet. A single word from me could erase you. And yet, you speak without fear." Ryan held her gaze. "Fear changes nothing. My people already live in your shadow." The queen studied him for a long moment. There was no sound in the hall except the faint hum of unseen machines. Then she rose slowly from her throne and descended the steps. The generals stiffened but did not move. She walked in a circle around Ryan, her robe whispering across the floor. Her eyes moved over him as though she were reading something written upon his skin. "You are not the leader of your people," she said softly. "You wear no badge of rank, no symbol of rule. Yet your eyes are steady. Why did fate choose you?" Ryan did not answer. He did not know the answer himself. The queen stopped in front of him, close enough that her presence filled his sight. For a brief second, her eyes met his directly. Something flickered there, something no one else noticed. Her breath caught ever so slightly before she straightened. She turned away quickly, as though hiding the change. Her voice regained its calm strength. "Very well," she said. "You will serve as my speaker. Through you, your world will hear my words. Through you, your people will know their place." The generals murmured in protest. One of them stepped forward. His armor was crimson, his shoulders broad, his tone sharp. "My queen, this human is nothing. He does not deserve such honor. Choose another, one who can command his kind." The queen raised her hand, silencing him. Her eyes flicked once more toward Ryan. "He will do." The general bowed reluctantly and stepped back. Ryan stood still, his expression calm, though his heart beat hard within his chest. He did not understand why she had chosen him, why she had not dismissed him like the others. He only knew that her gaze had changed when she looked into his eyes. The queen returned to her throne. "Take him to the chamber of waiting," she ordered. "He will rest until I summon him again. Guard him well. If he tries to flee, end him." The guards stepped forward once more. As they led him out of the hall, Ryan glanced back at the queen. She was seated high again, but her gaze was not on her generals or her court. It was fixed on him, distant and searching, as if she saw more than just a human. The great doors of the hall closed behind him. The echo of her voice still rang in his mind. "Why did fate choose you?" Ryan had no answer. But deep inside, something stirred, something that had slept for years, perhaps for centuries. And though he did not yet know it, the queen herself feared the answer more than anyone else in the fleet. The chamber where Ryan was placed was quiet and wide, its walls smooth like glass and glowing faintly with pale light. No windows, no doors except the one guarded outside. It was not a prison, yet it was not freedom either. A soft bed lay in the corner, a table with a vessel of clear water beside it. For many hours, he sat in silence, listening to the low hum that ran through the ship like the heartbeat of some giant beast. He did not sleep. His mind replayed every detail of the Queen's hall, the gleam of the black pillars, the silence of her generals, and most of all, the Queen's eyes. For one moment, just one, he had seen hesitation in them. It was brief, almost hidden, but it was real. Why had she chosen him? Why had her voice changed when she looked at him? These questions circled in his mind, unanswered. The door opened at last. 2 guards entered, their steps in perfect unison. "The Queen calls," one said, his voice cold behind the mask. Ryan rose and followed. The corridors of the flagship were still as endless as before, glowing with that strange white light, but this time his steps were steady. He felt watched, yet not afraid. The hall was crowded when he entered again. The Queen sat upon her throne, her generals gathered close. Beyond them, rows of robed attendants stood silently, their eyes glowing faintly with the reflection of tablets they carried. The air was tense, as if something important was about to be decided. The guard stopped him at the center of the hall once more. The Queen leaned back in her throne, her expression calm, her eyes cold. For a long moment, she did not speak. She only stared at him as though searching for something hidden beneath his skin. "Step closer," she said at last. The guards hesitated, then obeyed her signal. Ryan walked forward until he stood only a few paces from her. The space between them was heavy with silence. The Queen rose slowly, her silver robe flowing like water. She descended the steps, each footstep soft yet powerful, until she stood directly before him. At first, her face was a mask of disdain. She looked at him as one might look at a broken tool, something useless and beneath her. But then their eyes met. And everything changed. Her breath caught. Her pupils narrowed, then widened again. Her lips parted as if she wished to speak but could not. For the first time, the court saw their queen falter. The generals stiffened. One of them stepped forward. "My queen," she raised her hand sharply, silencing him without a word. Her eyes never left Ryan's. The hall grew tense. The attendants whispered softly among themselves, confusion spreading like ripples on water. But no one dared to interrupt what was unfolding. Ryan did not move. His face remained calm, but inside, something stirred deep within him. Her gaze reached inside him like a searchlight, touching something he did not know was there. Images flickered in his mind, ships aflame in the void, soldiers shouting in languages unknown, stars burning brighter than the sun. None of it was memory, yet all of it felt real. The Queen finally spoke, her voice lower than before, softer, almost unsteady. "Those eyes," she whispered. The court froze. Never before had they heard her voice like this. "What do you see?" Ryan asked quietly. Her hand trembled, though only for an instant, before she steadied it at her side. She stepped back, her expression caught between fear and recognition. "You should not exist," she said, her voice regaining strength though it carried an edge. "Not here. Not now." The generals exchanged glances. Their queen was never shaken, never uncertain, yet here she was, unsettled by a single human. One of them, the one in crimson armor, could not remain silent. "My queen, this creature is nothing. Allow me to." Her voice cut across him like steel. "Enough." The general bowed, though the anger in his stance was clear. Ryan stood unmoving, his eyes still locked on hers. He did not understand what she had seen, but he felt its weight. It was as if his life, simple and ordinary until now, had been nothing but the cover of a far greater truth. The Queen turned from him suddenly, ascending the steps back to her throne. She sat slowly, her gaze distant, her fingers pressed against her temple as though fighting a memory. She spoke again, but this time to her court. "Leave us. All of you." The hall stirred. Generals and attendants alike hesitated, for never had she dismissed them all in such a way. But when her eyes flashed with command, they obeyed, filing out in silence until only the Queen and Ryan remained. The door closed behind the last guard. The hall was vast and empty, the echoes of their departure fading into stillness. The Queen looked at him again, but this time her voice held no mask. "Do you know what you are?" she asked. Ryan shook his head. "I am only human." Her eyes narrowed, studying him. "No. You are more. Your eyes carry a mark, one I have seen only once before in the ancient war, when your kind was not yet ready for the stars. Those who bore such eyes stood against my empire. They burned worlds, they broke fleets, and they vanished long before your earth learned fire." Ryan felt a chill, but his voice was steady. "I do not know these things." "Yet you carry them," she whispered. Her hand clenched against the armrest of her throne. "And if you carry them, then my empire is not as safe as I believed." The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken truths. Ryan did not know what future awaited him, but he knew one thing clearly: the Queen feared him. The hall remained silent after the Queen's words. Ryan stood still in the center, his hands at his sides, his eyes steady as always. Across the distance, the Queen leaned forward on her throne, her pale face caught between memory and disbelief. For years, her empire had grown without challenge. Worlds had bowed, fleets had surrendered, and resistance had been crushed before it could begin. She had become a figure of legend among her kind, untouchable, eternal. Yet here she sat, shaken not by an army, not by a weapon, but by the eyes of a single human. She rose once more, her silver robe sliding over the black steps like flowing water. Slowly, she descended, each movement deliberate. She circled him again, her gaze never leaving his face. "Your eyes," she said softly, almost to herself. "I have seen them before. Long ago." Ryan did not answer. He could feel her studying him, as if she were searching for proof of something impossible. She stopped in front of him, close enough that her voice carried only for him. "In the ancient war, there were humans who bore this mark. They were not like the rest of your kind. They carried strength that defied reason. We named them Starborn, though they named themselves nothing at all. They fought us when no others dared. And when they vanished, my people believed them gone forever." Her voice trembled as she added, "Yet here you stand." Ryan frowned slightly. "I do not know this war. I do not know this name. I am only myself." Her eyes searched his, as though she could tear the truth from his soul. "You cannot lie to me. The mark is clear. It is written in your gaze." For the first time, Ryan felt a weight pressing down on him. He remembered flashes that did not belong to him: shattered fleets drifting in black space, burning stars, warriors shouting in voices both strange and familiar. Were they dreams, or were they something deeper? The Queen stepped back. Her hands curled at her sides, though her voice rose again in command. "Understand this, human. If the mark has returned, then you are more dangerous than you realize. My empire cannot ignore what you represent. You may not know your power, but it exists, and it will grow." Her words echoed through the empty hall. Ryan remained calm, but his heart beat hard against his chest. He had never thought of himself as more than an ordinary man. Yet her fear was real, and it unsettled him more than her threats ever could. He asked quietly, "Why does this mark trouble you so much? Your fleet is strong, your empire vast. Why should one human matter?" The queen's eyes hardened. "Because I remember what your kind once did. With nothing but their will and their strange gift, they stood against us. They destroyed what should have been eternal. They carved wounds into the empire that never healed. My people speak of them as shadows, but I was there. I saw them. I fought them. And I know what it means if they return." Her voice softened again, though it carried the weight of old pain. "They were the only ones who ever made me fear." For a moment, the hall was silent again, filled only with the soundless hum of the ship. Ryan lowered his eyes to the floor, not in weakness but in thought. The queen's fear was not of him alone, but of something greater, something tied to his very being. Finally, he spoke. "If I am what you say, I did not choose it. I never asked for it. I do not even understand it." The queen's gaze softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "Whether you choose it or not, it is part of you. And because of that, you cannot be ignored." She turned away sharply, ascending the steps back to her throne. But even as she sat, she did not look at her generals when they re-entered the hall. Her eyes lingered on Ryan, wary and calculating, as if she were deciding whether to destroy him now or wait. The generals stood again in formation. One, the one in crimson armor, spoke. "My queen, this human is dangerous. Let us end him before his kind learns of his gift. A single spark can light a fire." The queen raised her hand. No, the hall stirred with confusion. The general pressed again. "Then let us bind him, strip him, study him. We must not let this mark live free." Her eyes flashed. "I said no." The general lowered his head, though his stance was stiff with anger. The rest of the court remained silent, unwilling to challenge her further. Ryan looked at her calmly. "If you fear what I might become, why do you let me live?" The queen did not answer at first. Her fingers tightened on the armrest of her throne. Finally, she said, "Because destruction is not always the answer. The Starborn fought us not with numbers, not with weapons, but with will. I would know if you are truly of them, or if you are only a shadow wearing their eyes." Her voice grew colder. "Until I know, you will remain under my watch. You will not leave this ship. Your world will wait, as it always has. But your path is mine to decide." Ryan felt the weight of her words. Yet he did not bow, did not lower his head. He stood tall in the center of the hall, unshaken by her decree. The queen leaned back, her face calm once more, though her eyes betrayed the storm within. "Take him back to the chamber. Guard him well." The guards stepped forward. As they led Ryan out, the generals whispered among themselves, but none spoke loud enough to be heard. The doors closed, sealing the queen once again in silence. She pressed her fingers to her temple, her thoughts restless. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar: uncertainty. The chamber was quiet once more. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the pale walls that glowed softly around him. He had been returned here many times now, always under the watch of silent guards. Hours passed, yet he could not rest. His mind carried too many questions, and the queen's words still echoed like thunder inside him. "The Starborn. The mark in your eyes. The only ones who made me fear." He closed his eyes, trying to push the words away, but instead visions came. They arrived like broken shards of glass, bright and sharp, piercing his thoughts. He saw strange skies filled with ships unlike anything on Earth. He saw a blazing light streak across the void, tearing vessels apart. He heard voices shouting in languages he did not know, yet somehow understood. These were not dreams. They felt heavier than dreams, more real. And yet he had never lived them. He pressed his hands to his head, breathing slowly until the images faded. Why him? Why now? The door slid open, and two guards entered. They did not speak, only motioned for him to follow. Ryan rose slowly and walked between them, his steps calm even as his heart quickened. This time, they led him not to the grand hall but to a smaller chamber. The room was round, its walls covered in shifting symbols of light. At the center stood the queen, alone. She wore no crown, no silver robe, only a plain black garment that clung to her like shadow. She turned as he entered, her eyes sharp but quieter than before. With a wave of her hand, the guards withdrew, the door closing behind them. For the first time, it was only the two of them. "You dream," she said softly. Ryan frowned. "How do you know?" "I see it in your eyes. The same visions that once haunted the Starborn now haunt you." She circled him slowly, her voice low. "Do not think I am blind to it. The mark awakens. It calls to you, whether you wish it or not." Ryan's jaw tightened. "If what you say is true, then tell me why. What is this mark? What am I supposed to be?" The queen stopped before him, her gaze heavy with memory. "The truth of your kind is buried even from you. Long ago, before Earth knew itself, a small part of your people touched the stars. They were not many, but they carried something within them, strength not of machines, but of spirit. They could see paths in battle no one else could. They could bend the will of fleets with their resolve alone. My people could not understand it, and so we feared it." Her voice grew quieter. "We called them Starborn, because they carried the light of the stars in their gaze. They were not immortal, yet they lived in a way that made death seem powerless. And then, without reason, they vanished. Some believed they died. Others believed they chose silence. I believed I had destroyed them all." Her hand trembled slightly as she whispered, "But your eyes tell me I was wrong." Ryan listened, his face calm though his thoughts churned. He did not feel powerful. He did not feel like the warrior she described. He was just a man caught in the storm of her empire. And yet, the visions within him grew stronger with every passing day. "You fear what I might be," he said quietly. The queen's lips curved faintly, not in a smile but in a bitter truth. "Yes. I fear it. For the Starborn alone broke the pride of my people. They alone made me doubt my throne. And if you awaken as they once did, then all I have built may fall." Her voice grew sharp again. "But I cannot destroy you, not yet. If I do, and the mark is true, then others may rise in your place. The cycle would begin again. No, I must understand you first. I must know why fate chose you." The room was still. Ryan did not look away from her. He felt no hatred, no anger, only a strange weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders. He asked simply, "And if I refuse to be what you fear? If I remain only human?" The queen studied him for a long time. Her eyes softened for a heartbeat, then turned cold once more. "It is not a matter of choice. The mark does not ask permission. It awakens when it wills. You may resist, but it will not leave you." Ryan felt the truth in her words. The visions, the strange strength in his calm, the way her gaze faltered when she looked into his eyes, it all pointed to something he did not yet understand but could no longer deny. The queen turned away, her robe shifting like shadow. She placed her hand against the glowing wall, and symbols rippled outward from her touch. Her voice dropped lower, almost as if she spoke to herself. My generals want your death. They whisper of chains, of experiments, of fire. They believe your kind is weak and always will be. But I know better. I saw your kind burn across the stars, long before this earth was ready. And now, I see the spark again. She turned back to him, her eyes burning with conflict. Do not mistake me for a friend. I will use you if I must. I will watch you closely, and if you become what I fear, I will decide your end with my own hands. But for now, you live. And as long as you live, the truth of your mark will unfold. Ryan did not flinch. He nodded once, as if accepting the weight she placed upon him. Then let it unfold. Whatever it is, I will face it. For the first time, the queen's gaze faltered again. There was no arrogance in his words, no threat, only quiet strength. It was the same strength she remembered from the warriors of the past, the same that had once forced her empire to its knees. She stepped closer, so close he could see the faint light in her eyes. Her voice was a whisper. You are dangerous, human. Not because of what you hold, but because you do not fear it. The door opened suddenly, and the guards stepped inside. The moment broke. The queen straightened, her voice cold once more. Take him back. As Ryan walked between the guards, he looked over his shoulder one last time. The queen remained standing in the chamber, her gaze distant, her hand pressed lightly against her temple as though the weight of memory was too much to bear. She had spoken of the Starborn as if they were a legend. Yet deep inside, she knew the truth. Legends did not return. But the mark in Ryan's eyes was real, and the truth it carried could not remain hidden forever. Rami stood inside the glowing chamber, his hands still resting on the great crystal. The light from the crystal wrapped around him like warm silk. Patterns of galaxies spun inside the crystal, moving in slow, graceful rotations. The humans gasped at the sight. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Every star seemed alive, every swirl of light telling a story older than time. The alien queen stepped closer, her long robe brushing the crystal floor. Her eyes, which had frozen when she first saw Rami, now held a mixture of wonder and reverence. She spoke in her melodic language, her voice echoing softly against the chamber walls. The human crew could not understand her words, but they could sense the weight of her meaning. Something important was being revealed. Rami felt a strange warmth in his chest. The patterns inside the crystal seemed to reach out to him, stirring memories he did not know he had. He remembered faces that were not familiar, voices that were not his own. The memories felt like whispers from the stars themselves. He realized then that the queen was right. His eyes carried something that belonged to the past. The queen raised her hand slowly, and the light from the crystal seemed to respond to her gestures. Long ago, she said in the universal translator that the humans carried, our people and your people shared knowledge. We walked together among the stars. We built worlds and discovered secrets. But war and fear broke the bond. Your ancestors were forced to leave the stars. Your kind forgot the truth of who you were. Rami listened carefully. He had never heard this story. Humanity had always believed they were alone in the galaxy, explorers in a dark, empty space. But now, the truth was unfolding before him. His people were never alone. They had once walked beside the alien queen's ancestors. His heart beat faster as he realized the weight of this knowledge. The queen moved closer, her eyes never leaving his. The mark in your eyes, she continued, is not just a mark. It is a signal. It carries the memory of the first humans who walked with us. You are the first in many generations to be born with this gift. Your presence here shows that the bond can be restored. Rami's legs felt weak, but he stood firm. I do not understand, he said quietly. How can my eyes carry memory? I have never been here before. I do not know your people. The queen's expression softened. Memory is not always in the mind. Sometimes, it is in the soul. The stars themselves remember. They pass this memory to those who are ready. You have the eyes of the first humans. That is why you can see the crystal in this way. That is why I knew when I first looked at you that you were the one. Rami felt a shiver of awe. The room seemed alive around him. The crystal pulsed with light, and he felt as if the universe was breathing through him. He reached out and touched the surface of the crystal again. The galaxies inside swirled faster, forming shapes he could almost recognize. Faces of humans and aliens appeared in the spinning stars. They smiled, reaching out as if inviting him to join them. His crew watched silently, not daring to speak. Neko, the engineer, whispered, This is beyond anything I imagined." Rami nodded but could not answer. Words felt too small for what he was feeling. His mind was full of questions, but also of understanding. Somewhere deep inside, he felt a connection that went beyond time, beyond language, and beyond distance. The queen knelt before the crystal, bowing her head slightly. "You see now," she said, "that humanity has a history among the stars. The knowledge that was lost can be found again. Your people are not strangers to the universe. You are not alone." Rami's chest swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. He realized that the story of his people was far greater than anything he had been taught on Earth. Humans had once been part of a larger family. They had once reached for the stars with others, not as lonely wanderers, but as companions to an ancient civilization. The generals of the alien queen watched with a mixture of suspicion and amazement. Some of them had doubted the humans, believing they were weak and unimportant. Now, they looked at Rami differently. They saw the truth in his eyes. They understood that he carried something special, something that connected two worlds. One of the generals spoke, his voice calm but firm. "If this is true, then the humans have a gift that can restore what was lost. We must treat them with respect." The other generals nodded. Slowly, they stepped back, giving Rami space, recognizing that he was more than just a visitor. Rami turned to the queen. "What does this mean for us?" he asked. "For humanity." The queen smiled softly. "It means that the past is not gone. It lives within you. It is time to rebuild what was lost. The knowledge of the stars, the wisdom of the ancients, the bond between our peoples, these things can be restored. But it will take trust, courage, and patience." Rami felt a surge of determination. He looked at his crew, their faces full of hope and wonder. "We will do this," he said firmly. "We will rebuild what was lost. We will learn from your people and share what we know. We can make a new future together." The queen rose slowly, her presence both gentle and powerful. She placed her hand lightly on Rami's shoulder. "Then let the journey begin," she said. "The stars will remember your courage. They will guide your path. You are the first step toward a new era for both our peoples." The crystal continued to glow, casting light over Rami and the humans. He felt as if the chamber itself was alive, celebrating this moment. The knowledge of the past and the promise of the future were intertwined in him. He was no longer just a human explorer. He was a bridge between worlds, carrying the memory of the first humans and the hope of what could come. The chamber was silent, but the silence was full of meaning. Rami understood that this was only the beginning. The hidden truth of humanity had been revealed, and with it came responsibility. The connection to the alien queen's people could change everything. He took a deep breath, ready to face the challenges ahead, knowing that his eyes had seen the past, and his heart would guide the future. The humans left the glowing chamber feeling a mixture of awe and determination. Outside, the palace of the alien queen stretched toward the sky, a magnificent structure of silver and crystal. The sun of the alien planet was low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the marble floors. The air carried a faint hum, as if the planet itself was alive, listening to the events that had just unfolded. Rami led his crew through the grand hall, past the guards who now looked at them with respect rather than suspicion. The queen followed silently, her robes flowing behind her. There was a new energy in the palace. It was not fear, as before, but anticipation. Something important had begun, something that could change the course of history. When they reached the central courtyard, the queen turned to face them. Her tall figure was graceful, and her eyes, once frozen in shock, now held warmth. "You have seen the truth," she said in the universal translator, her voice calm yet filled with power. "You understand that your people were never alone. Now the choice is yours. Will you walk with us, or return to your world and forget what you have learned?" Rami stepped forward. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. The eyes that had frozen the queen once carried more than memory, they carried a message of hope. He looked at his crew, seeing the courage in their faces. "We will walk with you," he said firmly. "Humanity has always wanted to reach the stars. Now we can do it together, not alone." The queen smiled, a rare and bright expression. She raised her hand, and the courtyard filled with soft, shimmering light. The alien soldiers, who had been silent and watchful, bowed in acknowledgement. The generals, once skeptical, now looked at Rami with a mixture of respect and wonder. They understood that the future had changed in a single moment. Rami turned to his crew. "This is more than an alliance," he said. "It is a chance to rebuild something greater than we imagined. We will learn from them, and they will learn from us. Together, we can reach new heights, and maybe even touch the stars in ways no one thought possible." The queen stepped closer and placed a hand on Rami's shoulder. "Your people have always had the courage," she said. "You simply needed a reminder of who you are. The stars remember you, just as you remember them now. With this bond, both our worlds can thrive." Outside the palace, the sky began to shift. The sun dipped below the horizon, and strange, luminous shapes appeared among the clouds. They were like ribbons of light, moving gracefully across the sky. The humans stared, amazed. The queen nodded. "This planet is alive in ways your people have not seen before. The universe is watching, and it responds to those who are ready." The generals approached Rami and his crew. "We will provide guidance," one said. "Our knowledge of the stars, our technology, and our history, all of it can be shared. Together, we can build something that lasts." Rami felt a swell of pride. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and dangers. But he also knew that for the first time, humanity had a true partner in the galaxy. The bond they formed today would not be broken easily. As the humans and aliens walked together through the courtyard, Rami noticed the queen looking at him again. Her expression was softer than before, filled with a mixture of hope and trust. "Your eyes carry both the past and the future," she said quietly. "Do not forget that. You are the bridge, and the stars will guide you." Rami nodded, feeling a deep connection to everything around him. The crystal halls, the shimmering light, the hum of the planet, they were all part of a larger story. A story that humanity had only just begun to remember. Later, in a smaller chamber, the queen presented Rami with a map of the galaxy. It was not a map in the way humans knew maps. Stars and planets moved and shifted on it, connected by lines of energy that pulsed faintly. "This is the network of worlds that once knew your people," the queen explained. "Through it, you can learn, travel, and rebuild connections. Your ancestors once walked these paths. Now it is your turn." Rami studied the map carefully. Each movement, each pulse of light, seemed to speak to him. He could sense the connections, feel the energy flowing between worlds. He understood then that this was not just a tool. It was a living memory, and it was waiting for humans to return. The crew gathered around, their excitement barely contained. They saw not just possibilities, but responsibility. "We have work to do," Rami said. "We need to learn, to understand, and to share. This is the chance to bring our people into the wider galaxy, and to do it with wisdom and care." The queen nodded. "You will not be alone. We will guide you. Others will come when the time is right. The stars are patient, but they also reward courage and persistence." As the sun finally set, the courtyard glowed softly under the light of distant moons. Rami felt a calm resolve settle over him. He knew the future would be difficult, but it was full of hope. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer a question. They had a purpose, a connection, and a partner in the stars. That night, Rami stood outside the palace, looking at the heavens. The stars were brighter than he had ever seen them. He thought of Earth, of his family, and of the people who had never known the truth of humanity's history. He smiled quietly. For the first time, he felt that humanity belonged not just to a single planet, but to the galaxy itself. The queen joined him, her presence quiet but strong. "Tomorrow, your journey truly begins," she said. "You will face challenges, but you will also discover wonders. Remember, you are not alone. The stars remember you, and so do we." Rami turned to her, his eyes reflecting the light of the distant galaxies. "We will honor the past, and we will build the future," he said. "Together." And so, humanity's new chapter began. The bond between worlds had been restored, and the path forward was bright with possibilities. Rami knew that this was only the beginning. Adventures awaited among the stars, friendships would be formed, and knowledge long forgotten would be rediscovered. Humanity would grow stronger, not through war or conquest, but through courage, wisdom, and the willingness to reach out beyond themselves. The stars shone above, and for the first time, humanity felt their light as a guide rather than a distant dream. Rami looked at the sky and smiled. The future was open, and he was ready to walk it, side by side with the alien queen and her people. The universe was vast, but humanity had found its place within it.